Doctor. Kendra Williams' hands trembled as she stared at the patient's chart, her eyes catching something that made her breath stop. The 17-year-old girl in room 304 had been examined by 20 of the country's top specialists over 6 months, each one leaving more confused than the last. But there, hidden in plain sight among pages of normal test results, was a detail so small that Kendra almost missed it herself. The faint discoloration on the girl's fingernails wasn't random. It formed a pattern. She glanced through the glass at Aisha Monroe, daughter of tech billionaire Darius Monroe, lying pale and motionless in the hospital bed. 20 doctors had failed to save her. Kendra was just a second-year resident. But that pattern on those nails told a story no one else had bothered to read. The girl's monitors beeped steadily, but Kendra knew that sound could change at any moment. I'd been staring at Aisha Monroe's file for 3 hours when Dr. Richard Palmer walked into the residence room. His white coat was perfectly pressed, his expression carved from stone. Dr. Williams, I understand you've been reviewing the Monroe case. His voice carried the weight of 30 years in medicine and zero tolerance for residents who overstepped. I looked up, my heart hammering. Yes, sir. I noticed something in her. 20 specialists have examined that patient. He cut me off, moving closer. Neurologists, toxicologists, infectious disease experts, the best minds in the country. What makes you think a second-year resident would see something they missed? I swallowed hard. The pattern on her fingernails, Dr. Palmer. It's called Meese lines, but the distribution is unusual. It suggests nothing. His eyes narrowed. The Monroe family has made it clear they want results, not theories from inexperienced residents. You're to focus on your assigned patients. Am I clear? But I couldn't let it go. Something about Aisha's case felt wrong, like a puzzle with pieces deliberately hidden. Sir, if we could just run one more test. You're dismissed, Dr. Williams. I stood there watching him walk away, the file still open in my hands. Through the window, I could see Darius Monroe in his daughter's room, his billion-dollar empire meaningless against whatever was destroying his only child. That's when Aisha's monitors started screaming. I ran. Dr. Palmer was already in the room, but Aisha's body was seizing, her back arching off the bed. Nurses swarmed around her as I pushed through the door. She's crashing, someone yelled. Darius Monroe was pressed against the wall, his face drained of color. Do something. For God's sake, do something. Dr. Palmer barked orders, but I couldn't stop staring at Aisha's hands. The discoloration had spread. Whatever was in her system was accelerating. Dr. Williams, I need you out of this room now. Palmer's voice cut through the chaos. But I'd seen something else, something that made my blood run cold. On Aisha's wrist, barely visible, beneath her hospital bracelet, was a small injection mark. Fresh, less than 6 hours old. Someone had given her something recently, and no one had documented it in her chart. The seizure stopped as suddenly as it started. Aisha lay unconscious, her breathing shallow, while machines monitored every failing system in her body. Dr. Palmer ordered another round of tests, the same tests that had revealed nothing for 6 months. I stood in the hallway, my mind racing. That injection mark wasn't in any nurse's notes. It wasn't in any doctor's orders, which meant someone had accessed Aisha's room off the record. "You're still here." The voice behind me was cold. I turned to find Darius Monroe, his 6-foot frame blocking the hallway light. Up close, he looked nothing like the confident billionaire from magazine covers. His eyes were hollow, his expensive suit wrinkled from days at his daughter's bedside. "Mr. Monroe, I heard what you said to Dr. Palmer." He stepped closer. "About the fingernails, about Mace's lines." My throat tightened. "Sir, I'm just a resident. I shouldn't have—" "My daughter is dying." His voice cracked. 20 doctors have told me they don't know why. If you have even the smallest idea, I need to hear it. I glanced toward Aisha's room, where Dr. Palmer was still conferring with specialists. Everything in my training told me to defer to senior physicians, but everything in my gut told me Aisha didn't have time for protocol. Mace lines can indicate heavy metal poisoning, I said quietly, but the pattern on Aisha's nails is inconsistent with accidental exposure. It suggests repeated, measured doses over time. Darius's face went white. "You're saying someone is poisoning my daughter?" "I'm saying we need to test for it. Specifically, the standard tox screens wouldn't catch it." "Dr. Williams," Dr. Palmer's voice boomed down the hallway. "My office, now." Darius grabbed my arm. "Wait, what kind of heavy metal?" I met his eyes, seeing a father's desperation. "I won't know until we test. But Mr. Monroe, there's something else. Your daughter has a fresh injection mark on her wrist. It's not in any medical records." His grip tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means someone accessed her room without authorization." The color drained completely from his face. Behind us, Dr. Palmer was approaching, his expression thunderous. I had about 10 seconds before my career ended. "Please," Darius whispered, "save my daughter. I don't care what it costs." But I was already wondering if the cost might be higher than either of us could pay. Because if someone was deliberately poisoning Aisha Monroe, they had access to this hospital. They knew her routine. They knew her room. And they were still here. Dr. Palmer's office felt like a courtroom. He sat behind his massive desk, fingers steepled, while I stood like a defendant awaiting sentencing. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "You've accused someone, we don't know who, of attempted murder. You've suggested that this hospital's security is compromised, and you've done this based on a resident's hunch." "It's not a hunch, sir. The evidence has been reviewed by 20 specialists." He slammed his hand on the desk. "Toxicology came back clean twice. The injection mark you mentioned, it's from the IV line placement yesterday. It's documented in the nursing notes from the night shift." My stomach dropped, but I'd checked the chart. There was nothing. "Then you didn't check thoroughly enough." He stood, moving to the window. "Dr. Williams, I understand the pressure residents feel to make their mark, to be the one who solves the impossible case. But this isn't a television drama. This is a young woman's life, and her father is desperate enough to believe anything. Sir, Please, just let me run one more test. A specific heavy metal panel. If I'm wrong, I'll accept whatever consequences. You'll accept the consequences regardless. He turned to face me. You're being removed from the Monroe case, effective immediately. You'll complete your remaining rotations in the clinic. And if you speak to Darius Monroe again without authorization, you'll be dismissed from this program entirely. The words hit like a physical blow. 3 years of medical school, 2 years of residency, countless sleepless nights, all about to disappear because I'd seen something no one else wanted to acknowledge. Dr. Palmer, that girl is dying. And 20 doctors are working to save her. Doctors with decades more experience than you. His expression softened slightly. Kendra, I know you care, but sometimes caring isn't enough. Sometimes we have to accept that we don't have all the answers. I left his office in a daze, my badge feeling heavy around my neck. The hallway seemed longer, the fluorescent lights harsher. I'd been so certain, the Meese lines, the injection mark, the pattern of symptoms that didn't match any standard diagnosis. But maybe Palmer was right. Maybe I was just a resident playing detective, seeing conspiracies where there was only tragic mystery. I was halfway to the elevator when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Parking garage. Level 3. 5 minutes. Come alone. DM. Every instinct told me to delete the message and go home. I'd already been warned. One more violation and my career was over. But then I thought about Aisha lying in that bed, her body slowly failing while everyone argued about protocols and procedures. I pressed the elevator button for the parking garage. The concrete structure was nearly empty at this hour, my footsteps echoing off the walls. I found Darius leaning against a black SUV, his security detail nowhere in sight. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know what Palmer told you." "Then you know I can't help you. I'm off the case. I don't care about the case." He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo. "I care about this." The image showed Aisha at her 18th birthday party, 3 months before she got sick. She was laughing, vibrant, alive, nothing like the pale ghost in room 304. "I've built a company worth $40 billion, Darius said quietly. "I've negotiated with presidents and prime ministers. I've made impossible deals happen through sheer force of will. But I can't save my own daughter." His voice broke. "The doctors keep running the same tests, getting the same results, and she keeps getting worse. You're the first person who suggested something different." "Mr. Monroe, I could be completely wrong. The injection mark might be exactly what Dr. Palmer said. The fingernail discoloration might be meaningless, but you don't think it is." He stepped closer. "I saw your face when you looked at her chart. You know something?" I hesitated, weighing my career against a dying girl's life. If I'm right about heavy metal poisoning, the standard tox screens wouldn't detect it. We'd need a specific panel testing for arsenic, thallium, mercury compounds. But those tests are expensive, and without Dr. Palmer's authorization, I'll pay for them. Darius pulled out his wallet, extracting a black credit card. "Whatever they cost, whatever you need." "It's not about money. I don't have access to order tests anymore. I've been removed." "Then we'll do it off the books." His eyes were desperate. "There are private labs. Places that don't ask questions if you pay enough. I'll get you samples. You tell me what tests to run. This was insane. Conducting unauthorized medical tests on a patient, using samples obtained without proper consent. I could lose my license. I could face criminal charges. But Aisha's monitors were still beeping in room 304, counting down the hours she had left. There's something else, I said slowly. If someone is poisoning your daughter, they have access to her. Regular access. It could be hospital staff, but it could also be someone closer. Darius's jaw tightened. You mean family? Friends? I mean anyone who visits her regularly. Anyone who brings her food, gifts, anything she might ingest or come into contact with. I paused. Mr. Monroe, who has unlimited access to Aisha's room? He was quiet for a long moment. Her stepmother visits every day. Her personal assistant brings her things from home. Her boyfriend comes after his classes. His voice dropped. And I'm there whenever I can be. What about medical staff? Nurses, doctors, anyone who's been particularly attentive? There's a nurse, Simone. She's been with Aisha since she was admitted. Very dedicated. Sometimes I find her in the room even when she's off duty. A chill ran down my spine. What's her last name? Butler. Simone Butler. Why? I pulled out my phone, accessing the hospital database. It took 30 seconds to find her file. Simone Butler, RN. 5 years at the hospital. Excellent reviews. No disciplinary actions. And a notation in her personal file that made my blood run cold. Sister deceased from rare genetic disorder. Age 19. Mr. Monroe, I said carefully, I need you to get me samples. Hair, blood if possible. Anything Aisha has eaten or drunk in the last week. Can you do that without anyone knowing? Yes. But Kendra, can I call you Kendra? I nodded. What did you find? I looked at him. This powerful man reduced to begging a resident for help. I found a nurse who might have a reason to hurt your daughter. But I need proof before I can accuse anyone. How long will the tests take? 48 hours. Maybe less if we pay for expedited processing. Darius nodded slowly. Aisha doesn't have 48 hours. She crashed twice today. Palmer says if it happens again, her organs might start failing. The weight of that statement settled over us. 48 hours to prove a theory. 48 hours to identify a poison. 48 hours to save a life. Or 48 hours to watch my career end while a young woman died. Get me the samples, I said. Tonight, if possible. And Mr. Monroe, don't tell anyone. Not your wife. Not Aisha's boyfriend. Not even hospital administration. If I'm right, the person poisoning your daughter is watching her closely. If they suspect we're onto them, I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't have to. Darius's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face going pale. It's the hospital. Aisha's crashing again. We ran. By the time we reached room 304, a full code team had already assembled. Aisha's body convulsed violently, her monitors screaming warnings that her heart was failing. Dr. Palmer stood at the head of the bed, calling out orders with mechanical precision, but I could see the defeat in his eyes. He'd seen this pattern before. 3 crashes in one day. The fourth would likely be fatal. I stayed in the doorway, technically forbidden from entering, watching as they pumped medications into her IV line. Darius pushed past me, his face a mask of terror, but security held him back. A father reduced to spectator at his daughter's death. "Clear!" someone shouted. Aisha's body arched off the bed as electricity jolted through her chest. Nothing. Again. Clear. This time, the monitors beeped. Slow, irregular, but beating. Dr. Palmer's shoulders sagged with relief, but his expression remained grim. "Get her stabilized. I want continuous monitoring. If her heart rate drops below 60, page me immediately." He turned, spotting me in the doorway. His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. He didn't have to. We both knew Aisha was running out of time. As the team dispersed, I noticed something that made my pulse quicken. Nurse Simone Butler stood near the IV pole, her hand resting on one of the medication bags. She was adjusting something, her movements quick and practiced. When she noticed me watching, she smiled. Warm, professional, perfect. Too perfect. I pulled out my phone, pretending to check messages while actually photographing the IV setup. If Simone was introducing something into Aisha's system, she'd have to do it through the existing lines. But which one? There were 4 bags hanging, each clearly labeled with standard hospital medications. "Dr. Williams," Simone's voice was friendly as she approached. "I thought you'd been reassigned." "Just checking on the patient," I said carefully. "That was a close call." "Too close." She glanced back at Aisha, her expression unreadable. "I've been with her since admission. 6 months of watching her deteriorate, and we're no closer to answers." She paused. "Though I heard you had a theory. Something about poisoning." My blood went cold. How did she know that? My conversation with Dr. Palmer had been private. Unless someone had been listening, or unless the hospital rumor mill worked faster than I thought. "Just exploring possibilities," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Dr. Palmer didn't think it was worth pursuing. "Probably wise," Simone smiled again. "Heavy metal poisoning would show up on standard tox screens, and Aisha's been tested extensively." She moved closer, lowering her voice. "Between you and me, I think it's something genetic, something rare that the specialists haven't considered. Her mother died young too, you know, similar symptoms." I didn't know that. It wasn't in Aisha's file. "Her mother?" I asked. "Oh, yes. Darius doesn't talk about it much. Cancer, officially. But I've seen the old medical records. The symptom progression was remarkably similar." Simone checked her watch. "I should get back to my rounds. But Dr. Williams, be careful with theories. Sometimes they can cause more harm than good." She walked away, leaving me standing in the hallway with a dozen new questions. Aisha's mother had similar symptoms. Why wasn't that in the medical history? And how did Simone know about it when even the specialists seemed unaware? I pulled up the hospital database again, searching for Aisha's mother. Naomi Monroe, deceased 8 years ago at age 39. Cause of death: metastatic cancer. But when I tried to access her medical records, I hit a wall. Files sealed. Restricted access. Someone didn't want those records examined. My phone buzzed. "Got the samples." "Meeting point?" I typed back quickly. "Lab entrance. Service door. 20 minutes." But as I headed for the elevator, I couldn't shake Simone's words. Her mother died young, too. Similar symptoms. If Naomi Monroe had been poisoned 8 years ago, and now Aisha was being poisoned the same way, this wasn't random. This was personal. This was revenge. And whoever had killed the mother was now finishing the job with the daughter. The service entrance was deserted when I arrived. Darius emerged from the shadows carrying a small cooler, his movements furtive. He looked like a man engaged in a drug deal, not a billionaire trying to save his daughter. Hair samples, blood from her last draw that I acquired from the lab, and a bottle of the supplements her assistant brings her. He handed me the cooler. Kendra, Simone Butler was in Aisha's room when I collected these. She watched me the entire time. If she's involved, then she knows we're investigating. I took the cooler, feeling its weight. Mr. Monroe, I need to ask you something. Your wife, Naomi, how did she really die? His face went rigid. Cancer. Why? Because Simone Butler told me Naomi had similar symptoms to Aisha, but that's not in any of the medical files I can access. Darius was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. The doctors never figured out what was wrong with Naomi. She deteriorated over 6 months, just like Aisha. They called it cancer because they didn't know what else to call it. But the treatments didn't work. Nothing worked. His hands clenched into fists. I watched my wife die slowly, painfully, while the best doctors in the world stood around looking confused. I swore I'd never let that happen again. And now it's happening to your daughter, I finished. Mr. Monroe, who was close to your wife? Who had access to her during those final months? Everyone. Family, friends, medical staff. He paused. Simone Butler was one of Naomi's nurses. She was young then, just starting out. She was very dedicated, very attentive. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Simone had been there for both poisonings. She'd watched Naomi die. She'd been with Aisha since admission, and she had the medical knowledge to make it look like natural illness. But why? What possible motive could a nurse have for killing a patient? And then, 8 years later, killing that patient's daughter. There's something else, Darius said. Simone's sister. She died around the same time as Naomi. Some kind of genetic disorder. Simone took a leave of absence for the funeral, then came back and requested assignment to Naomi's case specifically. What was her sister's name? I don't remember, but I can find out. Do it fast. I clutched the cooler. I'm taking these samples to a private lab tonight. Results should be back in 36 hours. But Mr. Monroe, if Simone suspects we're onto her, she might accelerate her timeline. Aisha needs 24-hour protection, someone you trust absolutely. I'll stay with her myself. No, you need to act normal. If Simone thinks you suspect her, she'll disappear and will never prove anything. I thought quickly. Hire private security. Tell the hospital it's because of media attention. Put someone in Aisha's room at all times. Someone whose only job is to watch who comes in and what they do. Darius nodded, already pulling out his phone. I'll have someone there within the hour. And Mr. Monroe? Don't eat or drink anything Simone gives you. Don't let her touch you. If I'm right about this, you might be next on her list. His face went pale. Why would she want to kill my family? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. The private lab was in a strip mall 40 minutes from the hospital, sandwiched between a nail salon and a tax preparation office. The kind of place that didn't ask questions if you paid in cash. I handed over the samples of Darius's black credit card, requesting a comprehensive heavy metal panel with expedited processing. 72 hours, the technician said. I need it in 36. That'll cost extra. I don't care what it costs. He shrugged, running the card. Results will be emailed. Don't call us, we'll call you. I drove back to my apartment in a daze, my mind spinning through possibilities. Simone Butler had been present for 2 nearly identical poisonings 8 years apart. Her sister had died around the same time as Naomi Monroe, and somehow Naomi's medical records had been sealed. I needed to know more about Simone's sister. My laptop was ancient, but it connected to the internet well enough. I started with social media, searching for Simone Butler's profiles. She kept them private, but her sister's memorial page was public. Tanya Butler died at 19 from complications of Wilson's disease, a genetic disorder that causes copper buildup in the body. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Wilson's disease, copper poisoning. The symptoms matched what Aisha was experiencing: neurological problems, liver damage, psychiatric changes, and the treatment was readily available if you knew what you were treating. But Wilson's disease was genetic. You couldn't give it to someone unless... I pulled up medical journals, searching frantically. There it was: iatrogenic copper toxicity, case studies in deliberate poisoning. Copper could be administered in small doses over time, mimicking Wilson's disease. It would cause the same symptoms, the same organ damage, the same slow deterioration, and standard tox screens wouldn't catch it unless you specifically tested for copper levels. Simone's sister had died of copper poisoning, natural, genetic copper poisoning. And Simone had spent 8 years learning everything about the disease that killed Tanya, learning how copper accumulated in the body, learning what symptoms to expect, learning how to replicate it artificially. She'd practiced on Naomi Monroe, perfected her technique, and now she was finishing what she started with Aisha. But why? What did Simone gain from killing the Monroe women? My phone rang. Kendra, you need to get to the hospital. Now. What happened? Aisha is awake, and she's asking for Simone. I broke every speed limit getting back to the hospital. Darius met me in the hallway outside Aisha's room, where a large man in a dark suit stood guard, the private security he'd hired. She woke up 20 minutes ago, Darius said. First time she's been lucid in weeks. The doctors are calling it a miracle. But Kendra, she keeps asking for Simone. Says she needs to tell her something important. Through the window, I could see Aisha propped up in bed, her face still pale, but her eyes alert. Dr. Palmer stood beside her, checking her vitals with an expression of cautious optimism. Where's Simone? I asked. She went off duty an hour ago. We've been trying to reach her, but she's not answering her phone. A chill ran through me. Simone knew we were investigating. She knew we'd collected samples. And now, suddenly, Aisha was awake and asking for her. This wasn't a miracle. This was a trap. Mr. Monroe, we need to move Aisha now. Different room, different floor. Somewhere Simone doesn't know about. What? Why? She's finally improving. She's not improving. Simone stopped poisoning her because she knows we're close to figuring it out. But she can't leave Aisha alive to identify her, so she's waiting for the perfect moment to finish the job. I grabbed his arm. That moment is when Aisha asks to see her, when everyone's guard is down because the patient seems better. That's when Simone will come back and administer a fatal dose. Darius's face went white. You're saying Aisha's recovery is bait? Yes. We need to move her immediately. And we need to make it look like she's still in this room. How? I thought quickly. The security guard stays at the door. We dim the lights. Make it look like Aisha is sleeping. Put someone in the bed. Similar build, similar hair color. When Simone comes back, we'll be waiting. And if you're wrong, if Simone really is just a dedicated nurse and Aisha genuinely wants to thank her, then I'll apologize and accept whatever consequences come. But Mr. Monroe, I'm not wrong. Your wife died of the same symptoms 8 years ago with Simone as her nurse. Simone's sister died of copper poisoning, and Aisha's symptoms match copper toxicity perfectly. This isn't coincidence. This is murder. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. I'll talk to Palmer. We'll move her to the private wing under a false name. But Kendra, if this goes wrong, it won't. But as I watched him walk away, I wondered if I was really that certain, or if I was just a resident playing detective, about to destroy multiple lives based on a theory I couldn't yet prove. Dr. Palmer emerged from Aisha's room, his expression unreadable. Dr. Williams, Mr. Monroe says you have concerns about patient safety. Yes, sir. I believe Aisha is in immediate danger from… I paused. From Nurse Butler. Yes. He explained your theory. Palmer's voice was cold. Do you have any evidence, any proof whatsoever that Simone Butler has done anything wrong? Not yet, but the lab results will take 36 hours. Aisha could be discharged by then if her improvement continues. He stepped closer. Dr. Williams, I've known Simone Butler for 5 years. She's one of our best nurses, dedicated, compassionate, skilled, and you're accusing her of murder based on circumstantial evidence and a hunch. It's not a hunch. Her sister died of copper poisoning. Naomi Monroe died of similar symptoms with Simone as her nurse. And now Aisha has a genetic predisposition to Wilson's disease that 20 specialists somehow missed. Palmer's voice dripped with skepticism. Or perhaps a resident with a hero complex is seeing patterns that don't exist. The words stung, because part of me wondered if he was right. What if I was wrong? What if Simone was innocent and I was about to ruin her career, her life, based on nothing but suspicion? But then I remembered Aisha's fingernails, the injection mark, the sealed medical records, the too perfect smile on Simone's face when she'd warned me to be careful with theories. Sir, I'm asking for 24 hours. Move Aisha to a secure location. Monitor who has access. And wait for the lab results. If I'm wrong, I'll resign from the program. But if I'm right, and we do nothing, Aisha Monroe will die tonight. Palmer was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. 24 hours. But Dr. Williams, if those lab results come back negative, you're finished here. Understood? Understood. We moved Aisha at midnight, transferring her to a private suite in the hospital's executive wing, the floor reserved for VIPs and celebrities who needed discretion. The room was registered under a false name, with restricted access requiring special clearance. Only Darius, Dr. Palmer, 2 trusted nurses, and I knew the real location. In room 304, we left the lights dimmed and placed a mannequin in the bed, borrowed from the medical training center and dressed in one of Aisha's gowns. From the doorway in low light, it looked convincing enough. The security guard remained at his post with instructions to let Simone enter if she appeared, but to alert us immediately. Now we waited. Aisha was groggy from the transfer, but conscious enough to answer questions. I sat beside her bed while Darius stood at the window, his reflection ghostly in the dark glass. "Aisha," I said gently, "I need you to think carefully. Over the past 6 months, has anyone given you anything to eat or drink regularly? Supplements, vitamins, special teas?" She frowned, struggling to focus. "My assistant, Keisha. She brings me smoothies every morning, says they're good for energy." "What's in them?" "I don't know. Health stuff. Protein powder, fruits, some kind of mineral supplement." Her eyes widened. "Oh God, is that what's making me sick?" "We don't know yet. What about Simone? Has she given you anything?" "Simone?" Aisha looked confused. "She's my nurse. She gives me medications, but only what the doctors order. She's been so kind. She sits with me when I can't sleep. Tells me stories about—" She trailed off, her expression changing. "About her sister." "What about her sister?" "She died young. Some kind of disease. Simone said she looked just like me. Same age, same hair color." Aisha's voice dropped to a whisper. "She said sometimes, when she looks at me, she sees Tanya. She said she'd make sure I didn't suffer like Tanya did." Darius turned from the window, his face pale. "When did she say that?" "Last week, I think. Time is fuzzy. But she was crying. She said she'd failed Tanya, but she wouldn't fail me. She'd make sure I went peacefully." The room went silent. Simone hadn't been trying to save Aisha. She'd been trying to give her the same death her sister had. A slow, inevitable decline from copper poisoning. In Simone's twisted mind, she was being merciful, sparing Aisha the suffering Tanya had endured, but she'd started with Naomi. Why? "Aisha," I said carefully, "did your mother know Simone's sister? Were they friends?" "I don't think so. I was only 10 when Mom died." "But," she frowned, struggling with the memory. "There was something. A fundraiser. Mom was helping raise money for some kind of medical research. Genetic diseases, I think. Simone's sister was supposed to be there, but she died right before the event. Mom felt terrible about it." "What kind of research?" "Wilson's disease. I remember because it was such a weird name. Mom said if they'd caught it earlier, the girl might have lived. She wanted to fund better screening programs." The final piece clicked into place. Naomi Monroe had been trying to help people with Wilson's disease, the same disease that killed Tanya Butler. But the fundraiser had come too late. Tanya had died, And Simone had blamed Naomi for not acting sooner, for having the money and resources to make a difference, but moving too slowly. So Simone had poisoned Naomi, making her die the same way Tanya had, slowly, painfully, while doctors stood around helpless. And now, 8 years later, she was finishing what she'd started, taking Darius's daughter the same way she'd taken his wife. An eye for an eye, a daughter for a sister. My phone buzzed. Text from the lab. Preliminary results ready. Call ASAP. I stepped into the hallway, my hands shaking as I dialed. The technician answered on the first ring. "You were right," he said without preamble. "Copper levels are off the charts, consistent with chronic poisoning over several months. Whoever this patient is, someone's been systematically killing them. Can you send me the full report?" "Already in your email. But listen, you need to call the police. This is attempted murder. We're legally obligated to report it." "I will. Thank you." I hung up, pulling up the email on my phone. The numbers were damning. Aisha's copper levels were 10 times normal. Her liver enzymes showed severe damage. Her neurological symptoms matched advanced copper toxicity, and the pattern of accumulation suggested regular, measured doses, not accidental exposure. I had my proof. I walked back into Aisha's room, holding up my phone. Lab results. Copper poisoning. Chronic, deliberate, and ongoing for at least 6 months. Darius closed his eyes. So it's true. Someone really has been killing my daughter. "And killed your wife 8 years ago," I added. "Simone Butler. She blamed Naomi for not saving her sister. This is revenge." Dr. Palmer, who'd been standing silently in the corner, finally spoke. "We need to call security. And the police. If Simone realizes Aisha has been moved..." His phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went white. "She's there now. Don't let her leave. We're coming." He hung up, looking at me with something like respect for the first time. "Simone just arrived at room 304. She's asking to see Aisha. Says she has something important to give her." "The final dose," I said. "She's going to finish it tonight." We ran. Room 304 looked exactly as we'd left it. Dimmed lights, mannequin in the bed, security guard at the door. But now Simone Butler stood beside the bed, her back to us, holding a syringe. She was talking softly to the patient, her voice gentle and soothing. "I'm sorry it has to be this way, Aisha, but you'll be with your mother soon, and with Tanya. You won't suffer any more. I promise." Dr. Palmer hit the lights. "Simone, step away from the bed." She spun around, the syringe still in her hand, her face a mask of shock that quickly morphed into understanding. She looked at the mannequin, then at us, then back at the bed. "Where is she?" Her voice was eerily calm. "Where's Aisha?" "Somewhere safe," I said. "Somewhere you can't hurt her." Simone's expression didn't change. "Hurt her? I'm helping her. I'm ending her suffering. Just like I should have ended Tanya's. Just like I ended Naomi's." She looked at Darius, her eyes cold. "Your wife could have saved my sister. She had the money, the connections, the resources, but she waited too long. By the time her precious fundraiser happened, Tanya was already dying. So I made sure Naomi understood what that felt like. What it's like to watch someone you love deteriorate while doctors stand around useless. You murdered my wife. Darius's voice shook with rage. And now you're trying to murder my daughter. I'm giving them peace. Simone's composure cracked. Do you know what Wilson's disease does? How it destroys you from the inside? Tanya suffered for months, and your wife did nothing. She could have funded research years earlier. She could have pushed for better screening, but she didn't care until it was too late. So you poisoned her, I said. Made her die the same way Tanya did. I made her understand. Simone's grip tightened on the syringe. And when Aisha got sick, naturally sick, I thought, I saw it as a sign. Tanya's death would finally mean something. Aisha would join her, and they'd both be free of suffering. Aisha doesn't have Wilson's disease, Dr. Palmer said. She has copper poisoning, because you've been poisoning her. Simone blinked, confusion crossing her face. No, the symptoms are identical. The progression, the timeline, everything matches Wilson's disease. I've been helping her, making sure she doesn't suffer like Tanya did. You've been killing her, I said. The supplements you had her assistant bring, the injections you gave her off the record. You've been administering copper for 6 months, mimicking the disease that killed your sister. The syringe fell from Simone's hand, clattering on the floor. No, that's not. I was helping. I was ending her suffering. You were murdering her, Darius said. Just like you murdered Naomi. Simone looked at each of us, her expression crumbling. But Tanya suffered so much. I couldn't let Aisha suffer like that. I couldn't fail again. Security arrived, flanked by police officers. They read Simone her rights while she stood there, tears streaming down her face, still insisting she'd been trying to help, that she'd been merciful, that she'd been honoring Tanya's memory. As they led her away, she looked back at Darius. Your wife could have saved her. She could have saved Tanya. This is her fault. All of it. Then she was gone, and we stood in the empty room, the mannequin still lying peacefully in the bed where Aisha should have been. Dr. Palmer turned to me, his expression unreadable. Dr. Williams, you saved that girl's life. If you hadn't noticed the Mies lines, if you hadn't pushed when everyone told you to stop. He paused. You're going to make an excellent doctor. Coming from him, it felt like a medal of honor. Darius grabbed my hand, his grip crushing. Thank you. Thank you for not giving up. For seeing what 20 specialists missed. For saving my daughter. I just noticed a detail, I said. The rest was evidence and logic. No, he shook his head. The rest was courage. Courage to trust your instincts when everyone said you were wrong. That's what saved Aisha. 3 days later, I stood in Aisha's new room, sunshine streaming through windows and flowers covering every surface. She was sitting up, color returning to her cheeks, eating solid food for the first time in weeks. The copper chelation therapy was working. Her levels were dropping. Her organs were healing. She was going to live. Dr. Williams, she said when she saw me. Dad told me everything. How you figured it out. How you saved my life. I just connected the dots, I said. Your body did the hard work of surviving. Simone really thought she was helping me. Aisha's voice was small. She really believed she was being kind. She was sick, I said gently. Grief and guilt twisted her thinking until she couldn't tell the difference between mercy and murder. She loved her sister so much that she couldn't accept Tanya's death was natural. She needed someone to blame. And once she started down that path, she couldn't stop. Aisha nodded slowly. I feel sorry for her. Is that weird? No. It means you're compassionate. That's a good quality in a person. I smiled. What are you going to do when you get out of here? Live. She said it simply, but with profound meaning. Really live. Every day. Because I almost didn't get the chance. She paused. And maybe study medicine. If I can survive being poisoned for 6 months, I can survive medical school, right? I laughed. Absolutely. Though I hope your clinical rotations are less dramatic than mine. Darius appeared in the doorway, carrying coffee. He'd barely left Aisha's side since Simone's arrest. Kendra, do you have a minute? We stepped into the hallway. He handed me an envelope. What's this? A thank you and an apology. I should have listened to you sooner. I should have trusted your instincts instead of deferring to doctors who'd already made up their minds. I opened the envelope. Inside was a check with more zeros than I'd seen in my life. Mr. Monroe, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. Consider it a research grant, or a scholarship fund, or payment for saving my daughter's life. His voice grew thick. You gave me back my child, Kendra. There's no amount of money that can repay that. But please, let me do something. I looked at the check, then at Aisha through the window, laughing at something on her phone. A girl who should have died, but didn't. Because I'd noticed a detail. Because I'd refused to give up. Okay, I said. But on one condition. We use this to fund Wilson's disease research. Real research. The kind that might have saved Tanya Butler if it had existed 10 years ago. Darius smiled, tears in his eyes. Naomi would have liked that. She'd have liked you. I wish I could have saved her too. You did, he said, by saving Aisha. By making sure Simone's actions didn't destroy another generation. You saved us all. As I walked away, my phone buzzed. Dr. Palmer. My office. Tomorrow, 9:00 a.m. I smiled. Whatever came next, commendation or consequences, praise or punishment, I'd face it knowing I'd done the right thing. I'd trusted my instincts. I'd fought for my patient. I'd noticed the detail that 20 specialists had missed, and I'd saved a life. That was enough. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, share it with someone who loves medical mysteries. What warning signs did you notice? What would you have done in Dr. Williams's position? Let us know your thoughts. Your perspective matters.